Leah attacks me over fake disability. I recorded and posted the assault. Now she lost everything, and her husband wants a divorce. I, 31 female, was born with a severe genetic disease known as EDS hypermobility type. This sickness varies significantly from person to person, with the majority levying quite normal lives despite some discomfort and problems. EDS is essentially a series of illnesses caused by faulty collagen in the body, which causes a variety of symptoms, including joint hypermobility, which occurs when joints become so loose and unstable that they frequently dislocate or subluxate, partially dislocate. It also causes severe joint and soft tissue pain, chronic weariness, easy bruising, and dizziness due to sudden decreases in blood pressure while standing. About 11 years ago, my condition deteriorated substantially, and I had to begin using a wheelchair because walking more than 100 feet became unsafe owing to the risk of hip dysplasia. In the last 3 years, I converted to an electric wheelchair because pushing a manual one was too difficult. For reasons I don't entirely understand, my aunt, 54 female, has a strong disdain for disabled NDVY dual, particularly those in wheelchairs who still have some leg mobility. For the last 11 years, whenever we were alone, she treated me like a dog. She argued that my condition was fabricated, stating that I made it up to divert attention, and because I was envious of anyone else VYing attention, particularly. I tried confronting her, but dealing with my sickness was already stressful. I kept her opinions to myself because I'm not aggressive and don't see her very often. I didn't want to burden anyone, especially since I was already asking so much from those around. My parents were fatigued from all of the doctor appointments, so I overlooked my aunt's conduct. I had become accustomed to her rudeness and no longer cared about her opinions until last week, when everything intensified. I went to see my aunt for our annual family dinner, which she had organized. Everything was going fine until she drank more than normal and became sarcastic at me in front of the family. Some family members confronted her, stating that her behavior was disrespectful and uncalled for. Throughout the evening, she silently fumed and stared at me. My parents noticed and kept a watch on her, but I chose to take a break from her stares by going into the kitchen on the other side of the house to take my prescription privately. My aunt followed me into the kitchen, closing the door behind her. I realized right once this wasn't good. She was obviously inebriated. I discreetly began recording the interaction on my phone. Even if I screamed, nobody would hear me because the door was closed and everyone else was talking loudly. She began by asking if I liked being an attention hog and ruining her supper by humiliating her. I carefully tried to propel my wheelchair toward the entrance while apologizing and explaining that this was not my goal. I tried to say what she wanted to hear, hoping to make it to safety. She began raising her voice, accusing me of being envious of her success and fabricating my problem out of laziness. She started calling me every name in the book and screamed rubbish at me. I began to cry, pleading with her to let me go as I suspected she was experiencing a mental breakdown. I realized I needed to leave, but I couldn't do it in my wheelchair, so I tried to get out of it. Unfortunately, she became furious and pushed me back into the chair forcefully. She screamed that she was not finished yet, and that liars like me deserved to be given a lesson. She began punching me in the face as hard as she could, dislocating my jaw. Then she tried to drag me out of the chair, dislocating my arm, but I fought back and she was unsuccessful. She managed to roll my wheelchair over onto its side, causing my foot to become jammed under the footrest. Fortunately, my father noticed my disappearance, as did my aunt, and became concerned. He began looking for me. Later, he informed me that I let out a blood-curdling scream that could be heard across the dining room, forcing him and my mother to race toward the sound. By this point, I was beginning to lose consciousness due to discomfort. I recall my father rushing through the door. According to what I was told, he body-slammed and punched my aunt, his younger sister, to keep her down. My mother yelled for someone to phone 911, and my nephew did instantly. My mother then untied me from the wheelchair and attempted to recall her first aid training. Meanwhile, my father forced my aunt to the floor, Leah VYing her husband in full amazement and unsure what to do. When the police and paramedics arrived, they handcuffed my aunt. She screamed at my father, wondering how he dared to touch a woman, particularly his sister. My uncle attempted to defend my aunt, claiming they had no idea what had happened and suggesting that I had tipped over while attempting to attack. He stated that his wife would never do such a thing unless provoked. He supposedly said even worse things, but my parents won't tell me what. I regained consciousness at this time, most likely as a result of the severe pain medication, but everything was still blurry because the medicine had left me disoriented. I was carried away in an ambulance, while my aunt was sent to jail. At the hospital, they discovered that I had several shattered ribs, a dislocated arm, and a dislocated jaw. The punches also resulted in a concussion, but the most serious injury was to my foot, which snapped. I had cuts and scratches all over my body, since my skin is so thin. Fortunately, none of the injuries required surgery, but due to my disease, I'll be in a cast for at least 10 weeks, followed by physical therapy. My ankle will probably be irreparably ruined. I feel guilty about ruining her life. I've received several voicemails from various numbers, all with her yelling about how I ruined her life and most likely their finance. My uncle is attempting to salvage his name by sticking by her side, but this appears to be a temporary measure since he now wishes to divorce. A few family members are making me doubt whether I did the right thing. Therefore, I'm wondering if I'm in the wrong here. Yes, we are getting a restraining order and filing charges. The prospect of her pursuing me again is too much to take. Some folks have also puzzled how I received pain medication while unconscious. As I pre-VY usly stated, I believe I recovered consciousness as a result of the pain medication, although I don't recall much owing to the discomfort. I'll ask my folks for more information as soon as I can. They're reluctant to discuss how they found me or what happened because they'd rather bury those memories than have them haunt me. The video of the attack was turned over to the authorities and has been backed up on numerous platforms. I'm also considering suing because my insurance covers legal fees. TLDR, my aunt admitted me to the hospital and badly wounded me because she suspected I was faking my genetic illness. I recorded the entire attack and shared it online when they said I was lying and attacked her. Everyone in the family has cut all ties with her, including her church. Her husband wants a divorce. So am I the VY lane that posted the footage and ruined her life? Now, to the next story. Story 2. I agreed to open our relationship because my girlfriend wanted it, but it wrecked her life. My boyfriend, 24 female, and I, 27 male, chose to have an open relationship after 5 years of monogamy. We had dated in high school, but when I left for college, we broke up because I suspected she no longer liked me. Years later, Mom told me that she understood I needed to stretch my wings and enjoy my life while at college. While I was away at college, her mother became extremely severe after discovering she had a boyfriend and had lost her VY virginity. She wasn't permitted to hang out with friends or go anywhere, and because she was financially reliant on her mother, she stayed under her mother's control even when she started college. Meanwhile, I was out dating, VYing fun, and trying to enjoy life, but I still missed her even if she was at home. When we first met and began dating again, she informed me about her mother's treatment, and I told her about my college experience. We moved in together in 2016 and have been VYing there ever since. Over the past year, she has expressed a desire to try new active VY ties. I felt jealous at first, but then I understood. The first time we pondered beginning our relationship, the guy she was interested in turned out to be rather trash, so she opted against. She recently made a new acquaintance at work and told me she wanted to spend time with him. They've been talking all the time, but they haven't had any sex yet. Meanwhile, I've been using dating apps, interacting with indie VY duels, and attempting to form connections. However, I'm understanding more and more that I don't care about anyone else and only want to be with her. It's painful while I'm at work, and we don't see each other often during the week. Then, on weekends when I'm not working, she hangs around with him. I feel as if I've taken a back seat to this entire event, and I can't help but feel lonely and alone. Every time I tell her I'm uncomfortable, she wants to cancel everything and end our relationship. She has stated that she is aware that this is an itch that must be scratched, and that if she does not, she will be left wondering about it forever. I suppose all I need is someone to communicate my emotions to and help me work through how I feel. I have an appointment with a therapist, which should help a lot. We began our relationship on July 7th, 2022, after 5 years of monogamy, because she wanted to expand her sexual experiences after growing up in an incredibly conservative NVY run. There were setbacks since I'm highly monogamous and had difficulty meeting mates, but she was able to secure dates and encounters almost immediately. Things improved after I went to therapy and discovered healthy ways to communicate my emotions. Our connection remained strong, but it improved much more as I began sharing my emotions more efficiently. I ultimately met someone who was both a great friend and a fantastic sexual partner. Unlike my partner, I discovered that I couldn't have intimacy with strangers unless I had a link, and I didn't want any more sexual encounters because I grew up with a lot more freedom. My girlfriend, on the other hand, began to get jealous of my relationship with this new companion. She began interfering with our time together, contacting me frequently when I was with this person or initiating sex with me just as I was ready to leave. This began to indicate a pattern for me. Before this year, my girlfriend was extremely responsible. She handled money well, even when we didn't have much. She worked a steady job with regular hours and had started college the pre-VYS fall to advance her career. However, prior to us starting our relationship, she began to regress. It began with her spending her whole income on tax tattoos and piercings, which I didn't mind because I enjoy external self-expression, but then she started antagonizing her bosses, REVYing hours late, or quitting work early without notice. This semester, her grades fell, and she gradually stopped attending class until she had no idea when midterms or spring break were. She had no idea finals were over and the semester had ended. My girlfriend took a 2-month leave of absence from her job, stating it was for her mental health, about a month or two after I began to feel closer to my new partner. When I proposed therapy, she declined. She limited her encounters to one constant guy and began spending days with him. This would have been a greater red sign if I hadn't begun working 12-hour swing shifts. She told me she hated being at home alone, and since I was gone so much, it made sense for her to find somewhere else to be while I was at work. Despite the fact that she does not own a car or a driver's license, she has begun to use meal delivery VYCS. This made no sense, especially since I buy groceries and keep the house supplied with food. She was wasting my money because she was not working. It started to feel like she'd lost her sense of maturity. When I brought up money problems or the fact that she wasn't doing anything at home while I was at work, she became frustrated. She'd spend the entire day lying in bed, ordering food. Whenever I tried to have good conversations about my feelings in the relationship, she would shut off. She'd reply she hadn't noticed any changes and that I might be making things up in my head. Eventually, she quit her work without VYing anything else planned. This drove me to distance myself from her both physically and emotionally because I thought my relationship requirements were not being addressed. She noticed right away, presuming I was no longer attracted to her. She grew irritated because I stopped initiating intimacy and the quality of our relationship had worsened. I attempted to make things right by sharing my emotions and explaining why it was difficult for me to want intimacy from her. However, she insisted that I was simply calling her a problem. We no longer have closeness, let alone cuddling. We still talk a lot, but much of it revolves around her sexual partner. I barely see her anymore, and whenever I try to initiate intimacy, she always has an excuse. She's sleepy, on her period, or anything. When she attempts to initiate sex, it is usually at the most embarrassing or inconvenient time. All the closeness has vanished, and we haven't had sex in about 2 months. I want to talk to her about it, but every time I bring it up, she gets irritated and threatens to end the relationship or claims I'm never satisfied. She continually tells me that I am the man she wants to marry and that she cannot imagine herself with anyone else, which complicates the matter even more. My working belief is that what I need in my life is maturity, and the partner I found exemplifies that responsible, fun, and balanced. On the other hand, my girlfriend appears to be looking for mindless entertainment and availability, and her present boyfriend reflects this. He has no personal commitments, rarely works, and is always available. Whatever happens, I do not want to leave my girlfriend. I know who she was and who I fell in love with, but I'm not sure whether I care about who she is today. We've discussed the possibility of COSREDDIT therapy once we've gotten our finances under control, but she doesn't seem interested. I really don't know what to do at this point. Update 1. The same day I wrote this, she received a call from her mother, the biggest enemy in her childhood. They've had surface-level contacts since she left home, but her mother informed her that her brother was experiencing psychotic episodes as a result of years of seclusion. Her mother also acknowledged that she had realized how terribly she had raised her children and apologized to my girlfriend. This appeared to trigger something in her, and she let out a lot of resentment. She informed her mother that she was going to begin therapy because she recognized she was becoming like her and did not want to hurt others the way she had been abused as a child. I'm not sure how serious she meant it, because she was pretty emotional at the moment. However, while on break from her current job, which she started last week, she began looking for a second one. She stated that having too much free time this year had a detrimental impact on her, and she wanted to try to achieve emotional and financial stability. This is all great progress, but several people in the comments made valid points. Ultimately, I need to figure out what I truly desire. I understand that jumping from one relationship to another will not serve myself or anyone else in the long run. I've also realized that I deserve to establish limits and have a say in my own life, but I recognize that partnerships involve work and that work must be shared. I need to do some serious thinking, and I'll provide an update if anything changes. Update 2, it's been a few months, so I thought I'd provide an update. About a week after the initial post, I recognized that things were not improving. I discussed it with some friends, and they all agreed it was time to break up. I knew it was ultimately my decision, but after reading all of the comments, I realized I needed to take charge of how I wanted to live. I broke up with her and stated why. I highlighted the things I wasn't happy with and the adjustments I'd like to see if we ever decided to get back together. She sobbed, and we spoke on the phone because we were never both home at the same time. She appeared to understand my reasoning and stated she would work on herself. As our lease expired, my roommate and I searched for a new place to live. She had expected she would move in with, which I briefly pondered. However, I decided against it, especially when she went on a rant about how she wanted to destroy my friends after discovering they had encouraged me to quit my relationship. Finally, I informed her she couldn't come with me. She ended up moving in with the person she had been seeing, but she remained in touch with me. She never really tried to improve herself. Instead, she would constantly moan about how bad her new boyfriend was, drawing parallels to our pre-VYS relationship. She eventually recognized that how he treated her was harsh and toxic. I pointed out the parallels between her connection with him and the way she treated me. She made a half-hearted apology, but it didn't feel genuine. I returned to treatment and have been doing well ever since. My finances are more steady than they have been in years, and I am now dating the woman I was seeing pre-VYS. This is the easiest relationship I've ever had. Our communication methods are consistent, and we communicate affection in the same way. It was surprising at first since I had become accustomed to turbulence and dysfunction in past relationships. But dating her felt like finally having someone on my side, someone dependable and steady. It took time to break my codependent tendencies and learn that I'm entitled to my own space and freedom. With her encouragement, I resumed my interests and began going back to the gym. Reflecting on the prior 6 years, I realized how much I tolerated and sacrificed from ex, which prompted me to lash out in fury. My therapist helped me realize that channeling my anger in that way wasn't good. So I've been working on being more productive and creative. Life now feels much more balanced and fulfilling. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.